Problem number 5. Solve by factoring. We have 6x squared minus 17x plus 7. So this is a trinomial, and following the rules to factor, we first look for a greatest common factor, which in this case they don't have a greatest common factor. 6, 17, and 7, there's nothing in common, as well as the x. The last one doesn't have an x. So basically then we're moving on and choosing one of the other methods, and because we have a trinomial with a coefficient larger than 1 or other than 1, so I will choose what I call the Columbian method, and I have to multiply the first by itself and the last or the third term also by the first coefficient or the first number. Then I'm just going to rewrite my problem. So 6 times 6 is 36x squared. I'm leaving the middle term alone, just bringing it down. And 7 times 6 is 42. Now I continue by writing my empty sets of parentheses and then square rooting this first term. So I get 6x, and I'm going to write that in both parentheses. And then I'm also going to look for the factors of the last number, or the third term, so 42, and I have to figure out my sign so I know if the factors of 42 will add or subtract to give me the middle number, just the number without a sign. So bringing down the first sign, which is a negative, and then multiplying the two signs together, so a negative times a positive is also a negative. Now when I have the same signs, the factors must add to give me the middle number. And if these signs would be different or opposites, then the factors would subtract to give me the middle number. In this case, they must add. So thinking of factors of 42, in this case it would be 14 and 3. 14 times 3 is 42, and 14 plus 3 is 17. For some people it's difficult to figure out those factors, so if you have difficulty you could always start with one that you know, for example 42 times 1, but that is not 17, and then you continue which number times 2 will give you 42 times 3 and so forth, and then when you get to 3, then you should notice that that is the right two factors that will add to give you 17. Alright, so the larger of those two factors, this is the right set, the larger number of those two always goes first, so our signs match, and the smaller one goes second. Our last step in the factoring process is, because we multiplied by 6 in the beginning, we're going to have to divide by the factors of 6. Sometimes it's just 6, but in this case none of the numbers are divisible by 6, or none of the binomial terms, even though 6 is divisible by 6 but 14 isn't. And here on the second part 6 is divisible by 6 but 3 isn't. So we need to split up the 6 into its factors, and another factor of 6 would be 2 times 3. So if you notice that this side is divisible by 2 and this side is divisible by 3. So 2 times 3 is the 6 that I have multiplied by in the beginning. Now simplifying this, we get 6 divided by 2 is 3x, and 14 divided by 2 is minus 7. And then on the other side we have 6x divided by 3 is 2x, and 3 divided by 3 is just 1. So we finish factoring, but because it's an equation, we're going to apply the zero product rule to find the solutions of this equation. And that means that we can take each part and individually set it equal to 0. So 3x minus 7 is equal to 0, and also 2x minus 1 is equal to 0. Solving for x, so let's add 7 to both sides, and we are left with 3x equals 7, and then dividing by 3 on both sides, and we get x equals 7 over 3. We cannot reduce. So moving on to the second part, over here we can add 1 to both sides. We got 2x equals 1, and then dividing by 2 on both sides, and we are left with x equals 1/2. So our two solutions to this equation are 1/2 and 7 over 3. If you wonder why I'm turning the numbers around sometimes, that's just a math thing that math people like to write numbers in descending order, which means that 1/2 is less than 7 over 3.